Did you know that when you have this and you mix it with this, you get this?
ちょっとめまいが。でも、いつものことだっぺ。
That's right. One Piece Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island is the most well-known horror movie of One Piece. And when I say horror, I don't mean horror like the thriller bug arc from the main series. I'm talking about absolute nightmare fuel. This movie is what happens when Eiichiro Oda stops playing Final Fantasy and starts playing Silent Hill. I know, a bit of a stretch, but it still plays out like that. If I had to place this movie chronologically in the main timeline, despite the fact that this movie isn't canon, I would say that it goes either before or after Long Ring Long Land. You know, the episodes of one of the most hated arcs in all of One Piece, which doesn't feel canon for many, but it is nonetheless. Anyway, back to the movie. We see our heroes arriving to a resort that seems a bit normal with just the right number of shenanigans here and there, with a weird guy that has a flower growing in his shoulder. The Straw Hats seem to be obliged to complete a couple of tests and trials if they want to stay in the island. But as the movie progresses, really weird things start to happen. The warm, light-hearted family vibe that we all love about the Straw Hats gets shredded, leaving them all feeling isolated and alone. This movie taps into their deepest fears, their weaknesses. It's like One Piece meets psychological horror. So many weird things happen, in fact, that the pirates stop acting the way they do normally. Nami becomes indifferent to Usopp, Sanji becomes overly distant towards everyone, and so on. Then there's Baron Omatsuri himself. I don't think we've seen a villain quite like him in the series. He's got this presence that's both chilling and fascinating. You know that mix you get when an antagonist starts as a silly character and then gets progressively darker and unnerving? Yeah, that kind. As the story progresses, we realize he's hiding something deeply sinister. Remember the flower I told you about? This eerie flower that seems to have a hold of him, feed him off something. Let's just say it turns out the Baron's prize isn't what you would expect. It's a nightmare that none of the Straw Hats were prepared for. Also, the trials I mentioned earlier, well, it's not what you expect. We see the Straw Hats facing challenges that aren't about brute strength or clever tricks. It's psychological. This island messes with their minds, preys on their insecurities, and turns them against each other. This isn't just another enemy they can punch out of the way, and honestly, it gets intense. You start feeling this dread building up as if something horrible is going to happen any minute. We see this when Nami becomes indifferent and distant to Usopp. Sanji distances himself from everyone in the group, and everyone starts acting more violently and indifferent than before. This contrast serves its purpose because we've seen the Straw Hats face many difficulties in the past, and we haven't seen the feud between Usopp and Luffy regarding the Going's merry fate yet. This means that not only is the group being separated by these dark trials, but by their own insecurities towards each other. They are being torn apart from the inside out. And that's what makes this movie special. It's a chance to see the Straw Hats in a completely different way. We've seen them as real people before through their adventures, but here it hits different. We see them with real fears in an environment that, while whimsical and fairy tale-like, it does feel more real than anything we have seen before. And while they face unimaginable threats all the time, here they are vulnerable in a way we're not used to seeing. It's honestly one of the boldest takes on One Piece I've ever seen. From now on, I'll be getting into spoiler territory, so if you don't want to get spoiled, please quit the video. Otherwise, or even if you don't have an issue with spoilers, still until the end. It turns out that everyone on the crew of the Baron died years ago, and these are nothing but corpses. How are they still alive? Remember that flower again? It turns out that it's the parasite of this island and draws energy from victims to feed itself and provide the Baron, the only survivor of his crew, the chance to revive them for a short time. If he wants to keep them around, he needs to provide even more victims. And that's what happens. The Straw Hats are the next target to be consumed by this flower. Also, wanna know the creepiest part? Technically speaking, the Baron wins. The Straw Hats technically die without Luffy being able to do anything about it. All of them get sucked into the core of the plant's main body and get drawn into the afterlife, while Luffy watches as he fails. He does eventually win and revive all of them, but for a second, you feel that the Straw Hats actually perish. And you know what helps to convince the audience that they actually die? This movie does something unusual that strikes in the right spot. Rather than relying on eerie or disturbing music, it uses silences. Loud silences. Sometimes you get very short segments of pure silence that feel eternal. Even in moments where there's no disturbing background or monsters, the pure presence of the loud silence makes you feel like something isn't right, as if there should be noise where there isn't any. I couldn't help but actually feel attached to the TV while watching this because I had never imagined I would see this take on the One Piece universe. A bold move that paid off marvelously. And that's a funny thing because I was never interested in watching any movie of any anime because since they're mostly never canon, I never truly cared. I only watched this movie and the One Piece Red, and I thought that movie was okay but not amazing. But what do you say? Should I watch other One Piece movies? If so, which one would you recommend me and which one would you like me to review? Let me know in the comments below, and since you're there, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future review. This has been Juano, and thank you for watching.